So, mate, while we're on your topic of junior cricket, there's a lot of stories about this, and two of my good friends, which I know are your great friends and old teammates in cricket, is Deledio and Marc Murphy. And these blokes rate themselves not only as footballers, but I'll tell you now, they rate themselves as cricketers. So today I really want to set the story straight. I'm pretty sure you were captain of this under-17s team that's infamous in so many ways.
Yeah, I was captain. It was in Adelaide. Can't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember it was stinking hot. It was brutal, but we managed to. Yes, they were players, and they both had a very good tournament. We beat New South Wales in the final, which had David Warner, Moses Enriques. They were a very good side, and well, we didn't draw. We drew with them, so we only had to do that because we finished top of the table, and we batted for days and didn't have to bowl for long.
I heard you were rooming with Marc Murphy at this stage. Now, Marc obviously is the captain of the Blues. What's your memories of rooming with him?
Very good, actually. I remember that we used to. He was obviously very fit, footy focused more than cricket. I suppose at that stage, you always knew he was going to be a footy player, but also a very talented cricketer. Yeah, there was some good times there. I mean. Yeah, I don't know what you've got.
No, I don't have anything. I'm just wondering, it must be some good times.
Yeah.
Now, anyway, mate, the boys that, again, obviously your teammates, they said they loved the tournament, it was good fun, but the only downside was the fact that you just kept bringing yourself into bowl all the time and gave no one else a shot.
Kind of. I mean, when you're under the pump as captain, like if you're going to go down on a sinking ship, you go down making sure that you're totally in control of it. But I was very lucky. We had a great side at that time for an under-17 team. Very good. And they both performed exceptionally well. Can't remember if Brett was player of the tournament. Maybe Tom Cooper from New South Wales at the time was player of the tournament.
I haven't heard if Brett was player of the tournament, and I'm sure he would have let me know because he's actually given me his stats of the tournament. And obviously we know Brett Deledio well, but he can recall any stat that he's ever had in his career, footy and cricket. So apparently in that tournament he made 75, a 51 not out, and he made 85 in the final with you against David Warner's team. Right.
I thought he got 100 in the final.
Well, he said you got 100.
Nah.
Well, maybe
I think I got 1 or 2 hundreds throughout, but not in the final. I remember I got out first ball after lunch, caught first slip off David Warner by on leg spin, and a bloke called Sean Dean, who was a gun underage player. He got 200 in the final for Victoria. I thought Brett got 100 in the final. Maybe he did get 85, but he had a very good tournament. Bowled fast. It was honestly, and this. Because Ben Stokes is an absolute gun and a superstar of the game, but sort of comparing them like as types of players, Brett was someone who probably batted a little bit lower, but come in and really aggressive, ultra aggressive, smacked them around, and then had the ability with the ball to bowl fast, but swing it both ways as well. He was super talented. So just in that mould of player, don't for 1 second pass on to him that I compared him to Ben Stokes as a junior player.
He is never going to forget that. He's going to chop this audio up and listen to it every night before he goes to sleep. That's something that he will live by for the rest of his life.
No, so similar type player, and Murph was a gun as well, middle order player. Knocked him around as a lefty, very good, but. I think from that tournament with the wickets Brett took, I think he made the Australian team, the Australian under-19 team, but then had to pull out because of draft camp or something like that.
Well, that's where I get to next, because I spoke to both of the boys before this and obviously doing my research on you. And the last thing I said to them was, who was better out of you and Murph or you and you and Lids? And Brett said, when you make 85 or 100 on the big stage, you know where it is. Murph said that he was the only one who made the All-Australian out of that year, and Lids didn't. So for you...
Maybe I'm confused with something then.
Yeah, for you to maybe put this to bed, and I know that they're going to be hanging off the lips of this because this will finally put it to bed, and all the legends about these two, if you had to pick one to play in your team at their peak of their powers, Murphy or Deledio?
Well, I reckon it was the semi-final. Murph got 100 to get us into the final, or the last round game or something we had to win. He got 100 and borrowed my bat. I remember that, and got 100. And as a professional player, if you lend someone your bat, the rule is they get to keep it if they get 100.
Really?
So there'll be times when, well, going back a bit, Davey Warner would just walk into the change rooms and you'd get back in from the warm-up and your stickers would be off your bat and he would have his stickers already on it, ready to go, and he'd walk out without ever hitting a ball with it and just go and use it in a game. And the rule is, and it's widely known, that if you get 100, you get to keep the bat. It didn't quite work that way in junior cricket when you
have to buy them.
Yeah, I think I was getting them I think I was sponsored by Kookaburra at the time. Yeah, I would have been. I was from a young age, I was, but yeah, he didn't get to keep it, that's for sure. And then Brett in the final, I think he knocked over a couple with the new ball as well. Big swingers, knocked them over, as well as getting 85 or 100. Obviously 85 if he remembers it like that. And
you have to pick one. You have to pick one.
I'm always a bit impartial to an all-rounder. I think as a slogging all-rounder who can swing the ball, I think they're pretty invaluable. So I'd go with Brett. Yeah, no. That pains me to say that, actually.
It's heartbreaking because Murph's going to take that to heart and Lids will never live that down. You've actually made his life, I think, by saying that. I wouldn't be surprised if the great man's trying out for the next Ashes because he'd absolutely love it. The way he used to walk around when the cricket balls and the bats came out at training up at the Giants, he definitely knew what he was doing. But credit to him, mate, he can swing them.
He's not that confident either when he gets the cricket ball or bat in his hand, is he?
He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
Or when he gets his rig out or something like that.
He's a good man.
I've never met any bloke at a young age with as much confidence as him in his own appearance.
Oh, he's a handsome man, and he's it's fair enough. If you've got it, you've got to flaunt it. But I was just out of curiosity, who do you support in the footy?
Geelong.
Oh, Geelong. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Love the Cats.
You wouldn't have seen then one Friday night on the MCG one time when I took Brett Deledio to the square. Then would you? Have you seen that mark where I absolutely smashed him?
No, I haven't.
Oh, jeez.
Can you roll the tape?
Oh, don't worry about it. I'll make sure you've got it straight after the interview.
Send through the YouTube link.
Oh, I will, mate. I will. Don't worry about it. It's actually my screensaver on most of my devices. How did it all come about for you? I suppose your first time in the squad and then getting your baggy green presented to you. How did all that come about?
My first ever time in the squad was a T20 game. I made my T20 debut in Adelaide against England. And I'd played really well for Victoria, I think, at the time, for quite a while. I'd just moved to open the batting for maybe 18 months, 2 seasons, and did well and got in the side and then had to bat at number 6 for a couple of games, which was cool and no issue with that. I think I got man of the match in my second game, but then missed the next 5. I was dropped for the next 5. I think someone come back into the side. So I carried the drinks for a tour of South Africa or a tour of Sri Lanka, which is not the 2 worst places in the world to tour when you don't have much else to do. And then my ODI debut was in Melbourne against Sri Lanka. So I can't remember. Michael Slater presented both of my one-day and T20 caps. But debuting at the MCG in front of a big crowd was pretty awesome in one-day cricket. That was something that, again, I thought that I was ready for at the time. But you don't know until you're there. It's like anything. You think that you're prepared and you think that you're as well prepared as you possibly can be. And I was probably just a little bit off the mark still. I was doing really well in domestic cricket, but then that jump up to international cricket was so big. I was probably just out of my depth slightly, so I was just about fine-tuning a few things, and that come pretty quick, which was nice. And then my test debut to get my baggy green from Alan Border in Dubai was unbelievable. That was something really special. So how that come about was obviously a bit of unfortunate circumstances for a few guys in Australian cricket. Left a couple of holes in the batting lineup, and having played, I would have maybe played over 100 ODIs by then. Having that experience and stuff like that, I think it was good. It was a pretty special time and something that I look back on with great memories. I think going forward, a few things I would have done differently in the Test matches that I played in Australia against India, but it was an amazing time, and I wouldn't change it for the world. The
baggy green, I suppose, and especially in Australia, as someone who watches Test matches, it seems like it's just such like the holy grail of cricket. Really, it's something that everyone wants to get their hands on, and obviously, like we said before, only so many can do it a year, and even over time, only so many guys have it. How special and sacred? I know it's an obvious question, but how special and sacred are those things? Like, is it true? Like, they don't get washed. You keep them in the condition you have. Like you can't get a new one. They're everything to you.
Absolutely. I think the only time you get a new one is after you play 100 tests. I think you get presented with a new one, which very rarely would anyone change their... Well, I think there's stories of guys who have had their caps nicked and stuff like that. They've been taken out of their bag or whatever. So obviously you need one to play in. But yeah, I think that's something really special about the cap, to be able to say there's only... I was 453rd player to play Test cricket for Australia. So it's been over 100 years. So for that to... for me to be one of them, I hold really dear. And the cap itself, I'd never touched one. I'd always, like, at the start of each summer, everyone used to be to Brisbane, now Sydney, where you get all your headshots done, you do all your filming stuff for the summer, so you get a lot of content knocked out over a couple of hours, couple of days. And they'd always say, "Oh, can you put on the baggy green? Like, we'll do a photo in your white." So, that always made me really uncomfortable. So I'd never do one.
Is that because you had, like, is that even after you had one, or you hadn't got it?
I hadn't got one, so I always felt you don't touch it
until you earn it.
Yeah, so I remember I was at John Hastings' house one night. This is going back a couple of years, and he'd played a Test match, and it was sitting on the table, and he goes, "Oh, pick it up." I'm like, I just couldn't bring myself to touch it because it's not mine. I didn't earn it, and because it's such a and that might be just me. I don't know about other people, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have it downstairs. I hope that I do, but I don't think that I'll need it again. So I haven't quite got it framed yet, but it's pretty special. It's pretty cool to just to smell, to feel. It's awesome. So
I read an article about that time in your career where you're talking about the form slump that you had last year, I think it was. And basically, it was awesome, really interesting to me because, like, in my career, like, obviously there's form slumps and getting out of it and the way people deal with that's so different. I was reading about how there was two things that you sort of did, and one was carrying a journal around, like a notebook that you'd write in, and the other one that I loved and that's like really resonated with me was like your language and the way you spoke to yourself. Can you elaborate on that, like, and how was it going through that time, and how did you bring yourself out of it? Was it someone that helped you with it? Did you, like, read, or was it just something that you thought you had to do?
Well, the first one was, I think, becoming a Test opening batsman was not what I really was. So for me, I went to Dubai, made my Test in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I played in Abu Dhabi the second Test and was quite comfortable in them conditions because it was more of a white ball type game. And then we got back to Australia and people said, well, you're not going to be able to open the batting in Australia. You don't have the right technique. You haven't made enough runs. And so I almost started to believe that for a while. And then it got to the point where I was almost trying to bat like I thought people wanted me to bat, rather than, you know what, if I'm going to go down, I should go down my way, and almost in that regard, just throw it all out the window and just go back to what's true to me. But I was still new to Test cricket, even though I was 31 or 32. I was still new to Test cricket, so I was still trying to impress and trying to become a Test opening batter rather than just batting like I do. And if it's good enough, great. If it's not, I'm also okay with not being good enough. That's a part of life. So I think I was working so hard on trying to change a few things. And when you're trying to change something 3 days before a Test match, then walk out and face Jasprit Bumrah and Ishant Sharma with a new ball in your hand, good luck, because you've got worrying about your footwork patterns, your back lift, what's my head doing, where's my weight transfer going to be, when should I trigger move, and then you still got to watch the ball, react to it and do that over and over. It's bloody hard. So I think what I started, I was just doubting myself through that whole period, and there was things that I was working on in the nets that I didn't have the courage to take that into a game. And I think that since I've been, one day cricket is a bit different. I've probably got I've been successful in that for quite a while, I think, or reasonably successful. So I think that I'm able to make changes like that and stick to them, because I know that if all else fails, I've got a really good base to fall back on. And I just didn't have that in Test cricket. So, I was in India. I'd been to Dubai for the Test, and then we come straight back and went South Africa ODIs, Test matches, India ODIs, and then we went to India. And through that whole period against South Africa, right through to the second ODI in India, I'd just been shocking. I'd play a Big Bash game, couldn't get a run as well. So it was just, everything was just weighing on me. And it got to the point where I was so fixated on the result, like I need to get 100 to get everyone off my back.
Yeah.
The World Cup was coming up. Warner and Smith, they were coming back from their ban. So it was like, shit, I mightn't even get a game here, and I'm captain of the side. Like, and that stuff started to weigh on me a lot. So it was really tough in that regard. So I sat down with Justin Langer, and he just started talking me through how it was affecting my sleep. I don't think it was affecting my captaincy. I felt as though my on-field captaincy and my leadership was still really solid, but I couldn't sleep properly because every night I'd go to bed, I'd just think about, shit, tomorrow I've got to face Bumrah and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. These two get me out all the time. And I was just, my language was really negative all the time. Like I was turning up to a game expecting to fail, hoping that I'd do well.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm playing my best, when you speak to guys when you speak to Steve Smith about batting, he's not thinking about failing. He's not thinking about what happens if I get out for a duck. He couldn't care less. He couldn't care if he gets a duck or 20. His theory is he's still missed out. But that never enters his mind until it happens. Like it's only, I'm going to stick to my process and do it so well that if I get 100, great. If I get a duck, it's okay, because I know that the odds are in my favour. And I was just my language was really poor on myself. I was always doubting myself, always second guessing anything that I'd do. So my chat with Justin Langer was great. We sat down for an hour in his room and just started. He gave me a few exercises to do, trying just to help, which he found helped throughout his career. So one was just writing down against the opposition, write down how they're going to bowl to you, how they're trying to get you out, and how you're going to play them, and do that for every bowler. And then at the end of it all, write down what you visualise the score you're getting tomorrow. And that was, so one day it was like 160. I thought, yeah, I can see myself getting 161 not out tomorrow, winning the game. We're chasing 310. I get 160, we win, no problem. But it's also just giving you something to
chase, yeah.
To chase, yeah. But what I found with writing everything down is it got all the negative thoughts out of my head, because your brain is always trying to fight with itself, saying, well, you're facing these guys tomorrow, they've got it all over you. And so I'd be up all night going, well, how am I going to play them? Geez, I don't know if I can. But when I wrote it all down, it was sort of like, right, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar is going to bowl me. He's going to bowl me out swingers, and he's setting me up for LBW and bowled. He'll hang it out there, and then use the in swinger as a surprise. Or he'll go all in swing and then use the out swinger as a surprise. But I've faced it all 100 times. But how am I going to play it? So for someone like him and someone like Bumrah, my stance is a little bit different. I go a little bit more open stance. I go a little bit deeper and get my head a little bit lower in my crease, because they both skid the new ball. So they were my notes. And it was amazing once I got that all out for every bowler, it just cleared my mind, because it just allowed me to go, as soon as I'd start thinking about the negatives, about facing them and them knocking me over, I'll go, you know what, no, I've already got a plan. I've already thought about my plan, how I'm going to play, and just stick to it. If it's good, no problem. Or if it works, no problem. If it doesn't, no issue, because you know that is the right plan, but you've just got to commit to it for long enough. And it was probably something that I hadn't done in my test stuff. I hadn't committed to anything for long enough, because one, maybe I wasn't good enough, but two, I hadn't given it enough time to embed.
Yeah.
I was trying to change a footwork pattern that I've had for 20 years in 3 days.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And then I'd throw the toys out of the cot going, this is bullshit, I can't get any runs, it must be something else. And then you go back to the normal thing and then try and change. And it was just a never-ending cycle that you can't win. You can't win doing that. So the fact, or the importance of having time to embed something is so important. But just getting that out of my mind onto a piece of paper, whether I wrote it before I went to bed, or I'd write it when I got home from training and you got a couple of hours spare, and just sit down and read it before I went to bed. Go, right, that's how I'm playing. And it just allowed my mind to switch off. I slept like a baby. I think I got 93 the next day. And that was sort of the end of that sort of chapter of it being so shit for like 6 months. Just fearing getting out all the time, fearing failing, fearing facing an opposition. Like, it was just really weird. But once I got it all out there, then the next game I sort of turned up, and you're a little bit taller because you've done all your preparation, and it's all preparation that I've done mentally anyway, but I've just never written it down. So my brain was always just fighting with itself to find an outcome. And when that's at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're walking out to Mark Centre at 11 o'clock the next morning, that's not ideal. Man,
that is honestly, it's so incredibly insightful. Like, I can relate to so many of those things, and I suppose it's one of those points as well, saying trying to change things like overnight and not realising that like it takes so long to form a new habit. Yeah. But again, I'll probably touch on is what you keep bringing up language, and I suppose that's like the main thing that I sort of feel, not even to do with sport, to be honest, because I know that, like, you know, sporting was cool for me, but I think more in life, like the way I talk to myself now, instead of saying things like, you know, I'm shit, or I'm not doing this yet, or I don't want to do that, it's like, I'm not there yet. Like, I'm not where I want to be yet, or change. Like, those little triggers, I feel, for me, are like the biggest things that have helped my mindset, not just in sport, but just in life. Is that sort of the thing that you're writing in your book? Is those sort of changes of wording? Yeah, because I was getting to a point where I was so negative towards everything. It's like, well, I'm watching Virat Kohli bat, like whether it be in highlights or live out in the field, and sometimes it's a pretty special thing to witness, even as an opposition captain out in the field. It's like, geez, this bloke is on a different level at times. And then be like, shit, why can't I do that? Like, we probably train the same amount on our batting. Why can't I do that? Geez, I'm no good off my pads. So then it was like, well, hang on. Yeah, but also he can't walk out and hit it 20 rows back at will at times. Like, if I'm having a day out, I can smack him for a while. Whereas he's like a surgeon. He'll just dice you without you even knowing at times. And it's like, well, yeah, I can also do things really well. And I think it's appreciating what you can do well and what you need to improve on. And it's not about, I want to bat like Steve Smith or Virat Kohli or Kane Williamson. It's like, well, they can't do what I can do. Yes, they can do some things a lot better, but that's okay because I can do that really well. But it adds up. And why am I comparing myself to them as well? They're different players. They're players that are great test players, great one-day players, and they'll go down in history as just all-time great players. That's not who I am. I'm someone who, I play one day in T20 cricket. I try and do it as well as I can. So I think we always try and take things from other people's games and add them to ours. But you also have to understand that when you try and add something to your game, it detracts from what somewhere else. Yeah. So I went through a stage where I keep getting out LBW, bowled. So, well, I can't play off my pads, so yeah, that's okay. So but my offside game's really good. So do I become pretty good off my pads and not bad playing through the offside? I think that trade-off's too big to have a real impact on my game. I don't think it's going to make me better. What I can do is stay really strong at my offside game, but just manage my weakness as opposed to trying to overhaul it for God knows why, because you've seen other players be great at it. Like, you just have to be really true to yourself. And I think, like you said, turning that language from being negative and really like derogatory on yourself all the time, it wears you down. And it wears you down without you knowing. And then all of a sudden people around you start to sense that. And then they might start they might start saying it taking the piss. But you allow it.
Yeah, when you're talking about it yourself and then they do, you actually start believing it, whether you did in the first place or not. Yeah. And it wears you down. It makes you tired. It makes you really tired really quick. And then you doubt everything. Then you want to overhaul your game, and then you're back to square one. And it's not until you let everything go and you go, you know what, I'm just going to be really true to what I do well. Yeah. I'm going to keep improving on my strengths. I'm going to keep trying to chip away at my weaknesses. But don't just overhaul everything because you've got really poor language on yourself.
I love it, mate. I'm getting a bit riled up. I want to run through a brick wall and just go and get in the nets and smash some sixes or something right now. One thing, just on this, the last part, but like I feel like even today, like for example, I was feeling a bit flat, but because of this whole language thing, sometimes I'll just like, you can trick you. Like I feel like I can trick my mind, and I just walk around telling myself, You're a mad dog, man. You are absolutely killing it. You're so good. You're chatting to Finchy today. Geez, you're killing it. Geez, you're killing it. And then all of a sudden, like, your brain just starts going, shit, you're pretty cool. Like, you're going pretty good. You're pretty good. Like, it's going well. So that's probably something else that for everyone out there, like, I really appreciate the language and the mind thing, I suppose. I wish I learnt that earlier in my footy career because it definitely would have helped me a lot more.
Oh, me too as well. And I think for me, for getting the result, I think so much time, like I said before, geez, I just need to get 100, I need to get 100. But you can't get to 100 if you don't get to 1.
Yeah.
Like, and you get so fixated on the result of getting people off your back. Well, everyone, is he going to be picked for the World Cup? Smith and Warner coming back. Geez, they're going to have to drop their captain. It's like, well, yeah, you know what, if they do, that's fine. Like, I can live with that as long as I'm true to myself. If you're not good enough, no issue. I've got no issue with being not good enough at something. But what I would have had the shits at if looking back now, if I didn't change that around, was that I just allowed myself to talk my way out of it.
Yep.
Get 100, get 100, get 100. No. Watch the ball and get to 1.
Yeah.
And then once you get off the mark, get to 10. And you chip away at it like that rather than... Because you forget your process. When the result is up here, you forget the steps to get there. And I think that you get to a point where you go, well, right, I'm on 20 now. Geez, how am I going to celebrate my 100 today?
Yeah.
Am I going to carry on, or am I going to be a bit... Well, and then you nick one because you're not concentrating on the process. And every ball, you need a process. So I think it's so important that regardless of what walk of life you're in, what sport you're in, if you're in business or whatever else, the process, if you're confident in the process and that's right, chip away at it. Because who was I can't remember exactly who said it, but they said, I become a millionaire overnight, but it took me 7 years to get to that point of overnight happening like that.
Goosebumps. I love that, man.
So I was like, people want to get rich quick.
Yeah.
And he said, I got rich overnight, but the 7 years that it took me to get to that overnight was hard work.
Yeah.
People don't want that. People just, one day, you want to be a millionaire? Right, no one just walks down the street and gives you $1 million.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you got to approach it, is if you get halfway and you realise that there's some stumbling blocks and you can do the process better, there's no issue with dropping down a little bit to keep building on it. Just, you don't get halfway out and then throw everything out underneath you, because then you're left hanging and you're in a pretty shit-house position.
I absolutely love that, mate, and it couldn't be truer. And it's something that I suppose you just have to stay on top of, because, like you said, that mindset and the language thing, sometimes there are those challenging sort of times, and sometimes you think you're never going to get to be that millionaire, but the journey is just as important as the destination, and you've proved that right there.